with me. What is word order?
Give it your best.
Which languages have different ones and where? Why are some so common? Well, this one is so rare. What were these linguistic horoscope signs I'd been meeting across the years? What did it mean to define every language by where the S's, V's, and O's go in a sentence? Well, try this activity. Say a neutral sentence that states some information. No complications, no questions, commands, or negations. Just facts. Like my capybara sentence, yours should have one verb, an action like cook or eat. Must be free. And one subject, and one object. Well, make sure, no pronouns. If this feels rigged, pull back on. Follow the instructions, and you probably have a basic sentence. Mark the verb with a V, the subject S, and the object O, and voila, your language is typed. It's basic word order. And there's some mechanics to these 3 letters I wish someone would have sat down and animated for me. They'll matter later. Don't think about it too much, just watch the pretty letters move. Since each type is made up of 3 letters, that means if we move one letter, we can switch between 2 different orders, like moving S from the very end to the very front. Also, if we hold one steady, like pin that S, there are only 2 possibilities. The other 2 symbols, V and O here, swap places to create 2 different orders. However you swap letters or hold them steady, there are only a handful of possible orders. How many? Well, you could figure this out the hard way, doing our exercise across a planet full of people speaking thousands of languages, eventually realizing you always get one of 6 orders. Or the maths-minded among you decided we already limited ourselves by how we set up this activity. 1 times 2 times 3 letters makes 6. Either way, all languages fall into one of 6 types. Asterisk. There's a hitch. Even when you follow instructions, often enough you'll assign multiple sentence types to a single language. Sometimes you find one order more, others less. Sometimes it almost feels like there's no word order at all. It's fully flexible. But no matter, these indecisive types are surely a little ant that won't fight us before the video's over. So what is your language's type? Because intriguingly, our little activity shows us the 6 orders aren't equally common or evenly spread across the world. How many? Where? Step back and count. The majority of us speak just 2 types of languages. The most popular? Not subject, verb, object. That's second. It's subject, object, verb. Notice what both have in common? Putting S first is the most common thing you can do by a long shot. Next, 2 uncommon, both start with V. At a distant third place, verb, subject, object. The fourth is quite a bit less frequent still, and in fact shares something 2 rares below it. Spot it? Well, finally, both rares start with O. Drop down to OVS with the subject at the very end. And our order of the day, OSV, I'll say it again, rarest of all. Besides rare, uncommon, and common, we can split top 3 from bottom 3, or most special 3. Did you pick up on what the 3 least common have in common? We'll come back to them, but together they're odd enough that an early big name to do this word order work thought no language might even have them. Where can you catch the usuals and unusuals, the commons, uncommons, and rares? Around the world, SOV, yes, you're number 1, you're widespread. Number 2, SVO, you're common in big pockets, super regions really, but less common elsewhere, and also limited to specific families. You 1 in 10 VSO languages out there aren't too hard to find if we try. Together, you 3 types bundle up the vast majority of languages. Where are the 3 least common orders? UVOS are few, but still peek through some places. Lastly, the rarest types are associated with the same area. And with the Green Lanyard Space Jedi, not to split the fandom here, but OSV Yoda uses, at least English and Brazilian Portuguese. In our galaxy, on this planet, you do well to zoom in on the greater planet, where people speak languages like Apurina and Warau. Back to my earlier question. One last chance to guess. What do the top 3 have in common that you, dear OSV types, are doing wrong? Linguists wondered why you're last in the rankings. Are you flouting some universal trends? Starting with universal number 1, please avoid your S after your O. What if these aren't just trends you're defying, but deeper settings? Linguists could spend days comparing lists of word order principles to explain, but notice that V's and O's are normally stuck together. S-O-V and S-V-O. And yet, you chose to be one of only 2 types that break up the V and S-O. Also notice most of us give priority to our theme or topic, usually the subject, the S-O-V, the S-V-O. But you put your object, the least important info, first. When you do that, aren't you distributing information in the most uneven way possible? Ooh, and what if those settings are in our brains? Perhaps children learn to set O and V direction, then their stickiness before learning where S goes. In that case, it's like human language itself is against OSV, and humans all share some natural preference. SOV, more common in the past. SOV across all continents, even SOV inside your thoughts. And yet, OSV, here you are. You exist. Time to bite back and ask the linguists, just how universal are your universals? Basic are your basics? Because seems you think you're clocking languages as obviously SVO or SOV, when in reality, well, bring back the mysterious flexible type we set aside earlier. The ants are biting. 4 quick bites from this same continent. In Brazilian Sign Language, Libras for short, sentences shift between SOV or SVO or OSV, depending on the feeling in the graph of in Warau, storytellers go from OSV to SOV when they introduce a new character. Over time, Spanish word order made Guarani change from SOV to SVO. Makushipi use OVS and SOV, but one researcher calls for better vernacular data, especially women speak to understand more. All this flexing doesn't mean universals aren't fundamental, they're just part of a bigger process. Word order is shaped by settings from even more by other languages, the ones around yours and the ones before yours. All this gets filtered through seas of change. 4 C's. Linguistic constraints, like belief. Context, like what our storytelling. Colonization. In fact, multiple authors ask if SVO being so common isn't natural, but colonial. And culture, like in Makushi. Which bonus challenges us with, are non-standard vernaculars actually closer to universals? And is what's most normal really variation? Whatever the capybara sentence order, from meaning alone, we expect the food isn't the one doing it. Try the activity from before, with a Korean language textbook. You'll easily call it an SOV language. Do the same thing, but listen to Koreans speak. And you'll learn 2 things. 1, plenty of sentences don't even have both a subject and object. 2, even when they do, Koreans regularly use OSV order. They aren't alone. Do the same activity again with Maya in Mexico, and this time you'll find basic VOS and still pretty basic SVO sentences. You'll also hear OSV, our rarest word order. How is it showing up here though? This isn't the Amazon, and these aren't OSV languages. Instead of our linear order of S's, O's, and V's, here's what's basic for them. You state your sentence's topic, both languages audibly mark it. then the rest of your sentence is a comment on that topic. What a way to organize information. Now, a topic is different from your focus. We can talk more about this another time. Just a rule of thumb. The focus tends to be before the verb, while the topic tends to be before everything. And that doesn't conflict with it. In fact, it often invites sentences that are topic O, focus S, V. Like Libras, Warao, Makushi, and Apurina, Korean and Maya remind us that people speak with variety everything, which really gunks up our linguistic horoscope. If not just indecisive languages, but all languages flex, some just have stronger preferences, then word orders aren't signs or categories. They're more like gradients. So why do languages end up with the type they have? Not is, but does. OSV isn't the essence of what any language is, merely a shortcut label for what it does as the outcome of our process, where underlying variation and flexibility themselves are fundamentals. And so it is with Apurina. Remember earlier when I asked if this word order activity felt rigged? Well, capybara sentences, ones with a full noun object, a full noun subject, a verb, and no pronoun, are enough basically and commonly OSV. That said, such full basic sentences appear to be the least common kind of a Apurina sentence on record. This makes OSV the commonest order in their most uncommon sentences. If consistency isn't the point of language, being a consistent type isn't the point. Communication is. SOV or OSV may be less your language's design, but more a messy spectrum of use and variation. That doesn't make them useless, because somewhere in that spectrum, thanks to everything that went into this process, some people still speak a few special languages that tend to use OSV in basic sentences. And the foremost place where that's true is in the Amazon in northern South America. While reading about their rare word order, it was hard to miss stories about each of them struggling for their lives. Please consider supporting not just the rainforests, but the mouths and hands that speak and act to protect their water and wildlife. Links to more below. Thanks to you and to all my patrons. We finally reached a huge milestone, 1 million subscribers. We're looking forward to our future, so if you stick around, I will speak for more linguistic stories with you.
The Hasidic Jews of Brooklyn, New York are the most religious and closed-off community in America.
What is Hasidism to you?
It's a very vibrant community, second and third generation post-Holocaust.
Arguably one of the most fundamental religions, period, on the planet.
This community is a wonderful community because there's a lot of nice people here.
The whole system of how we relate to God and how we interact with God.
I'm about to walk into an exclusive synagogue here, and I'm pretty nervous. Wow. The stakes are very high for outsiders to be here, but I'm about to cross into this controversial bubble to discover the untold truth, which will leave you speechless.
Can you not record this?
Okay, this is going to be a disaster with cameras, but we're going to try. I'm in a rush. I haven't opened them. I never thought I would feel intimidated by my own religion. Security right now in this neighborhood. Pretty intense street, very, very religious. Everybody on their flip phones because they don't use internet. 100% of the women over 18 years old are wearing wigs. What are you supposed to think or believe in this moment?
So that's a really good question.
Growing up Jewish, I've always enjoyed connecting with other Jews around the world, like I've done in Ethiopia, Afghanistan, the Philippines, and Yemen. I consider myself very lucky to be part of a religion that has only 15 million members, but has such a profound impact on global society. That being said, I've always been extra curious about the Hasidic Jews of New York because they seem to be different, both physically and mentally, from the rest of us. The Hasidism movement started just 250 years ago in Ukraine and spread to the United States right after the Holocaust. The way that Hasidic Jews dress themselves and curate their lifestyle will keep you stunned, from their big furry hats and long beards to their lack of using the internet and smartphones. Their strong commitment to family, tradition, and strict Jewish law is remarkable. But let's back up a bit. Not all Jews are Hasidic. In fact, Hasidics make up only 5% of the total Jewish population. There are 3 other movements of Judaism: Reform, Conservative, and Orthodox. All of these communities can be found scattered around New York City. I started my adventure by popping into a Jewish restaurant in Washington Heights, Manhattan, which is a local hangout spot for modern Orthodox teenagers studying Torah at the well-known yeshiva.
Mostly Jews that come here.
Mostly, yeah. We have a bunch of teachers and people from around the neighborhood that come also. There's chicken shawarma, so it's homemade. Make every day with fresh chicken. Spice it up, stack it. It's so good, yeah. It's almost caramelized. No, I'm from France.
I thought I heard something.
Yeah.
I don't think that many French.
Yeah, I know.
My workers are the best.
You speak like Israeli. It's a little bit mixed in there.
After all these years working in the Israeli restaurant, I think it's literally Israeli accent. I'm from Chile.
I've never met a Chilean Jew in my entire life. Do you feel like you belong here, like with the Jews and the community?
I believe the community here is amazing. I believe that all Jews belong in Israel.
That is pretty tasty. Everything in a shawarma that I would ever possibly want, including eggplant, is in here. Very flavorful, very delicious.
Go in that building over there. That's like the big yeshiva, and you have like hundreds of kids studying together.
Really? Tell me about this community as a Jew.
This is what we call a modern Orthodox Jewish neighborhood. A little more takes like modern inventions and technology and incorporates it into Jewish life, as opposed to a Hasidic neighborhood, which may not do so.
What do you think about Hasidic neighborhoods?
They're not like any more Jewish than us, they're not any less Jewish, we're all like, the way like their teachings are amazing, and like it's not really for everyone, but the people who it's for, like it worked for a lot of people for thousands and thousands of years, so it's a really beautiful thing.
I happen to be Chabad.
It's different.
Chabad is a total, they're different Hasidic groups.
But you guys have no beef with each other, it's all Judaism.
They tend to be a little bit more insular, and for their reasons. From their religious perspective, they're trying to protect, what they're doing, and they don't want the world to necessarily influence them. I mean, there have been conflicts, I'm not going to lie.
But like you wouldn't
But the
wouldn't
goal-
go there and they wouldn't come here, put it that way.
Yeshiva University is a little bit controversial in that sense. Like,
Okay.
Satmar Chassid would not hold of Yeshiva University. They don't go to secular college. They don't
Sure.
go to secular university.
It's really cool to see Hebrew writing all over the walls. Like, I can actually sound it out, but I don't know what it means. Now that I've got a good feel for the modern Orthodox life in Manhattan, I'm hopping in a cab to the ultra-conservative Hasidic community in Brooklyn called South Williamsburg. Unlike other Jewish communities, most Hasidics rarely, if ever, leave the boundaries of their district. Everything from schools, hospitals, and supermarkets to hardware stores, internet cafes, and bookstores are all found within walking distance. It is very much a bubble, and it's intimidating to enter because A, I'm not Hasidic, and B, I'll be meeting up with Abby Stein, who comes from Williamsburg but was canceled by her parents and her family for coming out as transgender.
I was the first person who was raised in a Hasidic community in the 250 years of the Hasidic community's existence to have come out publicly.
The worst thing that happened to me when I've come back here has been people screaming, and once people threw an egg.
Threw an egg at you.
I'm going in with an open mind and a willingness to learn more about this unique culture while being extra careful on how I use my camera.
Hi! Hi! How are you? Good to meet you, finally. You grew up like here.
My parents still live about 10 minutes walking from here.
As we cross the border into Hasidic Williamsburg from the hipster part of town, I'm noticing the people's outfits and street signs immediately starting to change. It's literally separated by a single street, Broadway, with the subway screeching right above our heads.
Clearly it's pouring rain outside, we're doing our best right